It's Baldy checking in from Brazil.
Hey, buddy.
Hey,
Baldy, good morning.
Baldy.
Good morning, guys.
How was that
Oh my
flight?
God.
How was that
Tudo
flight?
bom,
You live in
tudo
Florida.
bem.
You live in Florida, correct?
Yeah, I have a place in Florida. Florida, New Jersey.
Yeah. How's your Portuguese down there in Brazil? Decent?
It's Poco.
Okay.
Paquito, I guess. Paquito.
Okay, very good.
That's Spanish.
Yeah.
Paquito.
Close enough. All right, so we'll get into that game in a bit, but we're here in DC and we're all pumped to see Jayden Daniels debut. Are we getting over our skis a little bit? Because he's obviously a rookie, even though he's the number 2 pick. We know his accomplishments at LSU. They're well documented. He's on the road against a Todd Bowles coached defense. Are we expecting too much in game one? How do you see this game playing out, and how do you see Jayden playing?
Well, I mean, Tampa's a very good team. They've won the division 3 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
They got a lot of good veteran players there. Vita Vale, Avante David. I mean, you just go through the roster. It's good. They upgraded their offensive line. The one thing, I think Jayden and Cliff and Dan, they know that these pressures that Todd Bowles literally draws up in his sleep, they're coming. And so, do you have an answer for it? Are you going to be able to handle it? What are you going to do when it comes? Is it because it's not just 3rd down and 7? I mean, he's got different pressures from everywhere on the field. He's very unique like this. So I think that's a big part of what they do in the pass game. I mean, it's a good defensive front. They have added a lot of talent. Kalijah Cansey, all Yaya Diaby. Some of these guys, people don't know their names, but they're good players. They've been drafted high. It's a good blend of defense. So it's going to be a great test, honestly. Like, this is a good football team and a team that will really compete for the NFC South. So, look, it's a good test for Jayden in the group. It's a rebuilt offense, a lot of new offensive players, receivers, whatnot. It's going to be a good test for him right away.
Baldy, I think that the receivers for Tampa are really going to give the DBs for Washington a tough day. That's just my gut feeling, because Mike Evans and Godwin are veterans. Evans scores 13 touchdowns a year. They drafted Jalen McMillan, quick guy, in the draft. So they've got 3 legit receivers. You've got Rashad White. I just think that they're going to give problems to the secondary, because that was one of the major issues for Washington last year. There's no doubt.
I mean, they signed Michael Davis, who's, came from the Chargers, and he's had a lot of good days. He's a big corner. He's 6'3". He plays big. Maybe I don't think they're going to, put somebody on Mike Evans and travel him like that, because Mike can line up anywhere. But, you're going to get tested by those 2 guys. This Jalen McMillan, I watched him in preseason. All they did was talk about this kid. He was the guy that nobody really talked about at Washington.
Yep.
But before there was Roma Doomsday, there was Jalen McMillan. And that's who everybody was talking about going into the season. And so down there, they were looking for a 3rd receiver. They've been looking for a 3rd receiver opposite Evans and Godwin. They feel like they found it. Baker thinks they found their 3rd guy. So, look, the secondary was the worst and most porous in all of football last year. They gave up 39 touchdown passes. They can't come anywhere near that this year. They got to work at getting that down into the 20s this season. And so this is a good first test, because you get to the red zone, Mike Evans might be the best. I'll just say this. I remember one day talking to Kurt Warner about the greatest show on turf and red zone offense and what they did. He goes, look, Baldy, you drop all the plays you want. Sometimes it's good just to throw it to Larry Fitzgerald in the end zone.
Right.
Put it up on the rim, let him go get it. And that's kind of what Mike Evans has been. He's been maybe the best red zone receiver in this league over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Baldy, what do you expect? You mentioned Bowles and what he's known for and dialing up these pressures in his sleep. Give us an idea of what we can expect from Joe Witt and Dan Quinn in this defense, because I know you can't glean much from preseason, but, man, it sure feels like we're going to bring our share of pressures too. I think they know that they're kind of maybe under-talented, and they're going to have to take some risks. They're going to have to gamble.
I don't think there's any question. I mean, Dan Quinn now left Dallas, 3 years defense coordinator. They led the entire National Football League in takeaways over the last 3 years. We saw Deron Bland come from being a part-time nickel back to leading the league with 10 interceptions last year. Like I think he's going to do a lot with Jeremy Chin. Jeremy Chin kind of fell out of favor in Carolina. Look, it was a bad organization. He's a good football player. Frankie Louvu, you talk to anybody that's ever had him on their team, whether it's the Jets or Carolina. Like this guy he's going to be a good blitzer for him. He's an off-the-ball inside linebacker. He's going to do a lot. He's going to move those guys around. They had a guy named Donovan Wilson that played for Dallas the last couple of years, number 6. I think, and he was like their do-all type guy. He was a linebacker. He was a blitzer. He was a slot defender. He was a safety. I feel like that's what Chin's going to be in this defense. And just talking to Dan, he said he's going to have multiple roles like that. So he's going to bring the heat. You have to. You have to find out. I think the right tackle is very, very average in Tampa. I'd go after him. They got a rookie center. I think very highly of him, Graham Barton. But you got to find out how he handles game day, his first game day, and what Dan might do to him.
We're joined by Brian Baldinger, Odyssey NFL Insider. Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. So you're in Brazil for the first game ever in South America. 2 NFC favorites are going to clash as the Packers take on the Eagles. We saw Jordan Love get his big bag of money a few weeks ago. Jalen Hurts, he faces off against him. He had a little bit of a down year stats-wise. I think he was nursing a knee injury for a good part of the season. Kellen Moore comes in to run the offense there with Philly. A lot of good subplots here. How do you see this game working out?
Well, neither team, like a lot of teams in this preseason thing, like they didn't play any of their starters. Matt LaFleur chose not to. Same with Nick Sirianni. Okay, the Eagles scrimmaged a bunch. Washington scrimmaged a bunch. So maybe they got a lot from that. But game day, you worry about a couple things. One, just the basics, taking a snap. Just being efficient, not turning the ball over. All those things are basic. But tackling is always a big deal. And then conditioning is always big. I don't know what the weather's going to be like tomorrow night. It's going to be probably pretty cool. But the field's going to be a factor. Like these soccer fields sometimes don't hold up as well for players that are used to just cutting on a dime on NFL fields and NFL turf. So I'm going to be on the field pregame. I want to check that out. But I think both teams are playoff teams. The Eagles have a very good roster. Now, they got to put it together. They got to do it. There was a horrible collapse last year. The coaching makes a difference. But Green Bay, like Matt LaFleur has done a fantastic job. He's lost coaches. He's lost players. He's lost Hall of Fame players in Aaron Rodgers. And last year, the way that they played down the stretch in the postseason, you can't dismiss that team from being able to beat anybody. I think that getting Josh Jacobs is really something that Matt LaFleur is going to use a lot of. I'm a big fan of Josh. He led the league in rushing 2 years ago. I don't think he's lost a lot. I think they want to run it. They love playing their tight ends and their young receivers. But this is a team in Philadelphia that should score a lot of points. It just should. I know Jalen was banged up, but Kellen Moore is a good coordinator. He knows what he's doing. They've installed an offense that has a lot of quick sets, get the ball out quick, and they've got talent everywhere. I mean, I just think the Eagles will win this game, and they'll play very well offensively. I don't think they're going to be a great defense yet. It might take a few weeks before they figure out what Vic Fangio really wants.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost a prove-it season for Sirianni based on what happened last year, right? Because 2 years ago, great season, go to the Super Bowl, lose to the Chiefs. But I feel like the way the season ended last year, the injury to Hurts, other guys were banged up, Devontae was banged up, and then how embarrassed they got in the playoffs to Tampa, right? I just feel like it's a prove-it year. And we're talking about new running backs joining new teams. I think Saquon's is going to have a big year. I think they're going to use him a lot, don't you?
Yeah, no, they are in a variety of ways. Look, if you're Nick Sirianni, and Nick is a straight shooter. I don't know. I like the guy. But you can't have an organization do more for your head coach than what they just did. I mean, you get him Vic Fangio, you get him Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, you get him a brand-new staff. You get Saquon. You go trade for Jahan Dotson. Whatever anybody in Washington thinks about Jahan, they love him in Philly already. They needed a slot receiver. That's what he is. So they'll figure out ways to use him. Defensively, all they did was just plug holes all over a secondary, a defensive linebacking core that was awful last year. I mean, all they did was just add pieces, and the roster got a lot better. And so it's on Nick now. And I think that's how Nick looks at it. I think that's how all fans should look at it.
Baldy, enjoy your time in Brazil. We're looking forward to you joining us throughout the NFL season. We're pumped for it. Have a good time down there and have fun watching the Packers take on the Eagles. We appreciate the time.
I can't wait, guys. It's gonna look like a World Cup atmosphere down there tomorrow night. I can't wait to feel it and get back and talk about week 1 with you next week.